Hello, folks out there. This episode of the podcast is partnered by Audible. Greg, you know what I love about Audible?
What do you love about Audible,
I
John?
don't have to pick up a book anymore and carry it around with me. In fact, I carry it around in my phone, which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. They literally keep thousands of titles right on your phone, accessible at any time when you're driving, when you're cooking, when you're mowing the lawn, changing a diaper, doesn't matter. It's all right there at your fingertips, John. They've got podcasts, they've got lectures, they've got some like health and wellness and like fitness series on there that if you just are looking for something to fill that gap, like you're not getting into a book right now, it's all there for you, man.
If you're a member, Greg, what's cool about it is you get 3 titles per month. The first one, you can pick whatever you want. Like I've said, I'll probably start hitting up some of those health and wellness books. And then what's awesome is they have 2 Audible exclusives. Exclusives, folks. You can't get it anywhere else.
It's true. That is very true. So if you guys want to get on the Audible train, you can go to audibletrial.com/JATG. That stands for Johnny and the Greg. Hook yourself up with a 30-day free trial. No promises, no nothing. If you don't like it, which I can't imagine you're not going to like it, you can cancel at any time. But the great thing about that is the books you get during your free trial, or if at any time, those books are yours. Like you get to keep them. You can listen to them nonstop, anytime, all the time.
Sounds like a deal to me, man. So if you guys are smart, like I know you guys are, because you already listen to this podcast, sign yourself up, guys. What do you got to lose? It's 30-day free trial, and it's books, it's knowledge. Gotta drink it up.
It is. It is. So one more time, it is audibletrial.com/JATG.
This time on Johnny and the Greg, we had Niqi Mann. What'd you think?
It was great. Yeah. Super positive woman. We, per usual, Johnny and the Greg standards, we didn't stick to our notes at all. But I'm not going to take fault in that because some things happened last Wednesday. There was some storming of the Capitol building, and we just felt we needed to talk about that.
Yes, agreed. And her perspective was much needed for our program. I was very happy to talk to her. She has this saying where people need to have more courageous conversations, and I think that's exactly what we had today. So, without further ado, guys, Mrs. Niqi Mann. We are just going to get into it. How are you, Niqi?
I'm doing good. How are you, Johnny and Greg?
Good.
Fantastic.
So, Niqi, give us your full name of however we'll call you Niqi, but give us the full rundown here.
My full name is Naquisha. Yep, that is my birth name given to me by my mom. Interesting enough, my father's name is William, and they thought I was going to be a boy, so they were going to name me Wilhelmina. And I'm so happy my grandmother stepped in and said, "No, you're going to need to go with something else." Because
grandmas are good for that.
Nothing against Wilhelminas, but I haven't met any that were just stunning. So I think I'm blessed to be called Naquisha, but all of my friends call me Niqi, and I spell it Niqui because my name is Naquisha. So it's interesting. Most Niquis are Nicoles, but I am Naquisha, aka Niqi, with a Q.
Well, thank you very much for jumping on here with us, Niqi, with a Q. The reason why, quick little rundown before we just get into this podcast. I met you through a mutual friend at a house rental this summer, and I was blown away by your positivity with the way you kind of came in and you brought this positivity cloud in. It was kind of cool. That sounds a little groovy, I guess, or a little like out there, but that's what I was impressed with right off the bat. And Niqi, I can't say this any other way. We need some positivity right now. I mean, the world is kind of crazy. Greg and I would love to let's just talk about. I mean, we can't go a podcast without actually talking about kind of what transpired last week. Greg, what, around Wednesday?
It was on Wednesday. Yeah.
It was on a Wednesday. Niqi, from your opinion, your viewpoint, what were your thoughts?
Man, I was, you have a lot of emotions, especially being an African American woman in the United States of America right now. Just being transparent. I am a believer in what our country stands for, and although my lineage came by way of not probably wanting to be here. Things happen and people paved the way for me to even be able to sit and have a courageous conversation with two individuals like yourself. So when I see things like that, it's like a black eye for us.
Yeah.
What stood out to me most importantly is when people don't believe in privilege or differences. I don't know how they could come against that after seeing what transpired in our country. Because when you had Black Lives Matter protesters do the same thing, go up there to peacefully to protest what they believed in. You had National Guards and everybody. Those steps were lined up with armed guards. And to see that group of people, majority white Americans, go to our Capitol, we must be let in and destroy it in that fashion, was very disheartening to me. Because we teach our children, I would hope, I think the majority of people I've come in contact with, regardless of demographics, some form of acceptance, or at least to be respectful of differences. And to see that level of disrespect was very disappointing to me, because how do you justify those actions? Going to protest, that's anyone's right. I'm not against that. Right, left, in the middle. But for Americans to conduct themselves that way and to create more division in our country by behaving in that mannerism was very sad, and it was frightening. That's frightening to me, because I'm a Black woman that lives in a town of 1,200 people. I live in a Republican county, and I'm not grouping Republicans, and I'm not saying that group is all Republicans are that way. What I am trying to say is, when you live in an area and it's you and one other person that's Black, and that's the person I'm married to, you start to question, how radical are these people and where are they?
Yeah.
So that created a different sense of making me uncomfortable, but at the same time, it made me happy, because maybe somebody else will get revelation through this situation. Maybe they'll start to question their own belief system and what our country really stands for. I mean, what happened to respectfully disagreeing? We have a democracy. The people have spoken, so let's move on. Let's heal. Let's try to cross these party lines and have some courageous conversations around our differences and what is causing us to maybe have these feelings, and empathize and sympathize with people who are different than we are, and understand that, what? Hey, we don't have the power. We voted, the power of the vote, and we have to just move forward. So it was a sad day for me, because, as you all know as well, I'm in the field of education. So when I think about our children and
Mhm.
how this impacts the youth in our country, the message that we're sending as adults, that this is how we behave when we don't like something. It was
Mhm.
very evoked a lot of different emotions out of me because I know that that's not what my great grandparents marched for, and the people who marched alongside them. They marched to see what we see in the party that won. The
Mhm.
people who were on the ticket of our first African American person to hold the vice presidency, a woman at that.
Mhm.
We should be celebrating these things, despite of, we can now say to a woman, no matter what her race is, hey, you have a shot at
Mhm.
becoming vice president or president. We're open to these conversations now, which is great. It took how many presidencies to get diversity in the White House, and now that we see it, we react in a way that is un-American to me.
Mhm.
You know, I just that's just thought my thoughts on that.
Yeah. What about you, Greg?
Uh, yeah, kind of the same thing. And it's interesting. I've got Nikki. I've got three kids. One is in high school, and I've got two in middle school, one upper middle school, one lower middle school. And this year has been, I guess education will be the only word you could use, because in the summer, when a lot of the BLM things were happening, we could look at that and say, the protesting, and this is just my opinion, you know, the protesting pieces, here's where they're justified. Here's where these marches, these protests, this is why they're doing this, and this is what makes sense. And then when some of those protests would kind of make that curve and go into rioting, and then you're like, okay, did you see what happened there? And this is where this doesn't make sense to me now. This is where,
Hmm.
when you're showing the destroying of neighborhoods and the fires and the break-ins or breaking of glass, stuff like that. And I'm like, see that I don't get that. Um, and now, as a result of the actions on Wednesday, I say, okay, here we go. Here's another group, um, and I'm like, here's why they're protesting, and that's their right, and it's okay. Oh, wait, nope, they made that turn. Here's where it's not
Yeah.
okay. And so, I mean, I guess the silver lining in the whole thing, and I don't know if I wouldn't call it a great silver lining, is for that my kids are able to witness and understand, um, kind of both sides of these groups and why they're protesting, and then watch how, they either get ramped up enough that it turns into violence, or bad stuff, where it's just that thing. They're able to see that, like when John and I were growing up, and I'm not gonna try to put an age on you because I have no idea. But I know when
I'm
John and I were
21.
okay, so then you're too young to remember
How
back
old
in
are
the
you? How
90s.
old are you?
She said
I'm
21, John.
21.
Yeah, doesn't she look
Oh,
21, John?
very
So
cool.
John and I are in our 40s, and so what he and I know is that, like, we didn't have, or maybe I'm speaking for John, grew up in a different part of the state than I did, but I similar sized towns. Um,
Hmm.
and I grew up in a place that is very similar to where you grew up, where
Hmm.
every face in my school was pretty much the same as mine,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
we didn't have opportunity to see,
No.
you know, even that hidden racism.
Right.
We didn't get to see it unless you were just tuned in enough to go, why do they always say they and them? Aren't we all
Mm.
kind of the same? I mean, unless you were paying that close of attention, you didn't get to see this kind of stuff. And there was no internet, and the stuff that was on the media wasn't. Again, we just didn't see it. Where now, it my kids can see it. We can point to it and say, okay, this guy, difference of opinion, but he's doing okay. Like he's keeping in line. I don't have to agree with him, but I can respectfully disagree with him, and we can have a dialogue.
Right. Right.
And that doesn't matter on what group you're in, or what side of the fence you're on, or what side of the aisle you're on. Having those civil disagreements, okay, let's talk about that. Versus climbing the walls of the Capitol building and trying to break down barriers. And, I don't understand. The whole thing on Wednesday, I'm watching it going, what's their purpose? Like, what are they
Chaos.
trying to accomplish?
Chaos. The purpose is
Yeah.
chaos. That's what it was. It was chaos. It was to make
And-
everybody.
You get
It was-
ramped up. I'm like, you're breaking into the
Well,
office
hang
of
on,
the
let's
Speaker of the
pause for a second.
House.
Let's pause for a second because I'm not
Sure.
100% sure, but I don't think what happened at the Capitol was necessarily a race thing.
Well,
Wrong with that? To me, it felt
no.
like it was
You're right. You're
hey,
absolutely right.
we're
It
all about
wasn't.
Trump, and we don't want this to happen.
Yes.
And we don't want this to go further. Like they were trying to tear down democracy.
Yes, I do agree with that. I guess my stint on it becoming a race thing is that if that group was predominantly black or really any other non-white, I mean, they could have been Asian, they could have been Mexican. It really doesn't matter.
Right.
Any other non-white group, it would have been tons more tear gas. It would have been rubber bullets. It would have been.
It would have been all of that. I mean,
It
you
would have
think
been
about what happened.
absolutely. It would have
When
been
you think
SWAT
about-
at the doors at gunpoint, like putting up shield walls, that whole deal. And that is not the response that the group of white people got.
Our current president, back in the summer when they had their protest, they're peacefully out there. They're shooting him with protesters or peaceful protesters with rubber bullets, tear gas, so that he can go and hold his Bible up. Just I think our current leader, to me, his message was fear, people of color. To me, when he's talking about building a wall and they're coming from these S-hole countries, he's talking about people of color, and his message was very divisive. And so I think Wednesday was a culmination of a message of 4 years, division, and
Finger pointing, agitating.
and not right. He agitated them before they did what they did. I mean, and to me, despite everything, like I said, our differences, I think when you're in a leadership position, your role is to unify.
Correct.
And
I believe that as well.
You know what I mean? I don't think Donald Trump did anything to unify the people of America.
I would agree with that.
But I think what he also did was he exposed the very ugly side of things that, like Greg said, he didn't have those experiences growing up. And whereas I grew up in a town like his, and I had those experiences.
You
growing up.
So you've experienced racism firsthand.
For
I
sure.
totally believe it. Absolutely believe it.
No, for sure.
No, I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that. But to be honest here, Greg and I don't, Greg, unless I'm wrong, like you and I don't have quote unquote black friends that we can actually talk to about this and say, hey, like, teach me something here because I don't know what's going on.
And it harkens back to when we were doing shows in the summer. I mean, when everything first happened, like up in Minnesota, when everything blew up, and my brother's in law enforcement, and he called me. He's like, "Hey, can I come on your show and talk about this? And we can talk about the procedure." Sure, that'd be cool. And we did a show, and I think it was a great show. It was informative. We didn't get any hate mail for it, but we did have one of our friends who is a person of color, and she emailed us. She's like, "Are you guys gonna like talk to a black person or a person of color that about the same issue and like have almost the same show, but get their perspective on it as well?" And we went, "Oh yeah, we were 3 middle-aged white guys talking about an issue that, honestly, we probably need some perspective on."
I live that. That's my life. My life is that I am in your age bracket. I know I was joking around earlier, and my parents who are in their 60s and they stay right outside of Lake Geneva will tell me, "Go home. We don't want you on the road at night because we don't want you to be by yourself and the police pull you over. if the police get behind you, you need to keep driving until you are in an area where you can be seen. My parents, and I've never been I don't have police contact, in a negative way. I've never had a situation where I've had to interact with the police. The police have not ever had to come to my parents' house. They didn't raise us that way. But for them to fear for me, not to say get home because we don't want, anything else. We don't want the police to stop you. And if they do, you need to do these things. And I, a mother of 2 African American sons, that's my life. When my husband leaves, that's my life. My life is that. It is not that I believe all police are bad. I know awesome police officers that uphold the law, that are good people to all people. But you also have people in power that have no training. They have no connection, like Greg would say. He talked about his upbringing, and then they're going to service a people that they know nothing about, and so it creates anxiety, it creates discomfort, it creates fear. And when you're serving people that you don't have any connection to, and all that you have to go off of is what you've heard or your own biases, knowing and unknowing, and we give you a gun at that with no real training on how to de-escalate. We walk into these situations escalated already because, we're dealing with this population of people, so they have to be handled this way. And it creates a situation. I remember growing up in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Moving from the south side of Chicago to Lake Geneva was a culture shock to me.
I am sure.
Yeah.
But going. I remember one time, me and my good friend. She's my friend. We still friends for over 36 years now. Grew up together. We went to Radio Shack in Lake Geneva. I have to tell you guys this story because we talk about it still to this day. We were like 5th or 6th graders. So we went to Radio Shack and they had these grab bags. You don't have a lot of money when you 10 years old. So it's like, we're going to buy these grab bags. We don't know what are in these grab bags, but they put all this pointless stuff in these bags. They sell us stuff, parts and stuff. So we opened up these bags. I think we paid like $5 for these bags. And it was all this stuff in there, wires and stuff you never, use. So we're in Lake Geneva downtown, and we're looking through these bags. And the police came up to us, made us empty out our purses, our little bags, show them a receipt. Like, they approached us, like, in front of everyone. It was like we had committed a crime or something,
Wow.
and it was crazy because I'm like, man, you asking us in front of you. We're in the summer in Lake Geneva, so it's busy, and it's like all these tourists. So the perception even of the people who are there, feeding into those stereotypes. We didn't look suspicious, we weren't misbehaving. The store didn't call them to say we have these kids. No, they stopped us in numerous times growing up there. We had situations with law enforcement for contact for no reason at all.
Wow.
And
So let me stop you there for a second, Niqi. So you said you had 3 sons? 2 sons?
two
Two
boys,
sons.
22 and 20, 2 young men. Yep.
So what I can only imagine, I think I'm going to go a little bit on what you said in the beginning of this conversation, where you said you don't understand how people can sit there and say they don't have privilege, or there's there's no such thing as white privilege. I think a big part of that is because I think when and I can only speak for myself, because the first time I heard it, I almost rolled my eyes because I didn't really understand what they were saying. To me, it sounded like they were saying, you don't know what we're going through, or if you don't believe, or no, it made me feel like I was a bad person because of how I was brought up, and that's not what
No, no,
that's
no,
not
no,
what it
no.
means.
Mm-hmm.
And when
No.
Greg and I were educated on what it meant, that it means that you had, like, for me and Greg, we had to learn. We learned about racism. We've never experienced it. We've never lived it.
Right.
Right. And I think that's a big miscommunication. And I've spoken with a lot of people who, I think, Greg, you and I had a podcast where we just talked about white privilege and the definition of
Mhm.
it. And I had a lot of people call me and go, I had no idea that's what it means. Like, I
Yeah.
thought people were calling me racist. So that's to answer that question. So when you go through this, your life of people treating you differently because of your skin color, how is that? How do you raise your kids in that environment, in the future environments? Like, how are you raising your kids through this? Like, what's keeping you? I don't even know
I
how to.
think I think honestly, you have to, I didn't teach my boys growing up to walk fearfully. I taught them to be proud of who they were, but also having to teach them that they have to be aware that they're black men in America.
Mhm.
So hang on, let me stop you there for Nikki. So what
Mhm.
does that mean? What does that mean?
That
Black men
means
in America.
that means you're not going to have the same opportunities as your white counterparts. That means that your difference is outward. You can't hide who you are. That means that when authorities approach you, you need to comply
Mhm.
immediately. That means that you always have to be aware of who you are and how you carry yourself. That means that make sure that you're not filling in those stereotypical bubbles on somebody's checklist. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
Pull up your pants, take your hood off, when you walking through the neighborhood, don't loiter, don't hang around too long, it, teaching them to be conscious of everything, pretty much every move they make. Also teaching them that uh, education can get you a seat at the table, and once you have a seat at that table, it's your responsibility now to pull the next brother up or
Mhm.
sister up with you. But it's teaching them just uh, how to decode just daily activity, like walking in my neighborhood. I live uh, on a lake, and in a gated community. And I'm not saying that like I'm rich or anything, because I'm not trying to make it seem like that. What I'm saying is the people around here are like, oh, where'd you come from? I told you I was the first African American teacher to ever teach in this district where I live. They had never had a black person work in schools here. So you can imagine the population, although it's more diverse than it probably was 20 years ago, there's not a lot of diversity.
Mhm.
So I have to teach them how to carry themselves at work. Even all of those things, I had to just really work with them on how they carried themselves, their character, what that had to look like, what that meant, because you cannot hide being African American. And because you're African American, you'll walk into a room and people are going to assume so much about you already. And even as a 40-plus-year-old professional, educated woman, I still have to remember every day, trust me, when I go to work, I know I'm black. And I think about that, how I carry myself. Is what I'm going to do, is it going to come across as a stereotypical angry black woman? Am I being too loud? Am I will someone be offended if I'm talking to their child? Will they make assumptions? And trust
Mhm.
me, people have, and I even still live that way. When me and my husband relocated up here in 2016, it was like pulling nails out of a 2x4 with your bare hands, getting him to come here because he had never been outside of the city of Milwaukee as far as living. And this was such a discomfort for him to come here because of his own experiences. But what happened once he got here? He realized what? People are people. We have great neighbors, wonderful people. And that's how we change the trajectory of the way direction and things that are going is by introducing people, our children at a young age, to diversity. Let them have enriched experiences with people that don't look like them. Let them learn about different cultures and stuff. So when Niqi moves next door to Kelly, it's not such a shock. You know, it's like, okay, you're a person just like I am. And I think, you know I kind of went off on a little tangent, but
No,
that's
right.
really it. It's bringing them. I had to realize, honestly, Johnny and Greg, that my boys were almost men. They had to have this experience if they were going to be successful anywhere in this country.
Yeah.
And that was a part of why we relocated, because I'm like, oh no, you have to learn how to live amongst white Americans, because if you don't, when you go to places, if you end up in different communities, you'll have no idea, and you will live in with stereotypes, and you might live in fear because you're uncomfortable. But you learn about a culture by being immersed in it, and that is why I thank my parents. I didn't appreciate it then, but I definitely appreciate the fact that they raised us in that community, because I'm able to be anywhere now and be successful and feel comfortable and make a life for myself. Not to say that I'm not looking over my shoulder sometimes or feeling discomfort of being black in a small white town, but I definitely hold my head a little bit higher because I don't walk around with assumptions about my white neighbors, like, oh, they racist, or oh, they don't like me because I'm a black woman. And yeah, we have different viewpoints, some of us, but most of the people, once I got out here and started talking to them about Black Lives Matters and all of those things that were going on. I live around older retired white Americans. They own their homes, vacation homes up here. I live here, but they have multiple properties and things like that. But having some of those courageous conversations and having a diverse thinking partner helped to challenge some of their mindsets. And I think they're appreciative of it. They have told me that. It takes courage to sit down and talk about your differences without being in fear of someone grouping you with a group of people. And I think that's always been one of my biggest fears. It's like, don't group me with the worst of me. We all have bad representation. Group with the best of me.
Well, absolutely. Right now, I mean, if any of us were to go overseas or go on vacation to other lands, when they find out you're American, it's almost like, hey, don't judge me over that guy that was in charge for a while. Don't do that. I going back to the Capitol thing. The way I feel about this whole thing, I feel two ways about it. The first one is these last 4 years, I haven't been that proud to be an American. Like, I haven't been that, like, America, here we are. I haven't felt that proud. And then I speak to people like you, and I hang out with Greg, and there is this, okay, we can get better. We just need more people like Greg. We need more people like Niqi. We need more people who are willing to sit down and, like you said, and I love how you phrase it, courageous conversations, because that's what it is. Because a lot of times I think a lot of people want to have these conversations. They're just scared. They're scared to I'm scared right now that I might offend you and not even know it.
Right.
You know what I
And
mean?
you know what? I offenses to come. That's gonna come. That's part of life, offense.
Right.
For me and my beliefs, in the Bible it says offenses to come. It's gonna come.
Mhm.
That it's gonna come. You know what I mean? And the thing about it is, if you're not, if you don't talk to me, I don't know.
Right.
Mhm.
So I've learned that it's like any relationship, friendship, marriage, whatever. If you don't talk to me or tell me, I don't know. And
Right.
my thing is, I like to use teachable moments. I like organic things to
Mhm.
happen so that I can take advantage of that and say, hey, you know, that's not right. Or, you might want to think about that. And I
Mhm.
like to be challenged as well because, again, we all have biases. We all have things unknowing and knowing,
Mhm.
that we have to have someone challenge our belief systems. And I think a lot of times we don't have the courage to say stuff because we want to tiptoe around people. I don't want to offend you. No, if you offend me, I can let you know why. And then maybe the next time you run across someone who may be similar to me, you won't offend them.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
can let someone live in their ignorance. That's fine. But you have to get understanding and we have to give it to each other. And so, that's what I said. I credit, growing up being immersed in a white culture, it taught me how to talk to people, to represent my race. I take pride in that. I take pride in being the only black person in my school district. I take pride in all of that because I'm giving you a different perspective. I know I am. I
Yeah.
see it every day, and that
Right.
is is what's so empowering to me is that I'm not afraid to have a conversation. Maybe I need uh to rethink my process too, or maybe I need to try to understand your point of view or why you feel this way from your own experiences, like I said. So I don't know what it's like to be a white male trying to have a conversation with a black female. And I have to understand that. So if you do say something that may be offensive to me, I can understand that, hey, that's your perception, let me give you a different one. People
Mhm.
are so afraid to talk about
Anything
why
really
they
nowadays.
feel. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, oh no, that's nope, that's offensive. Nope, that's offensive. Nope, that's offensive. We preach acceptance. We don't want to offend anybody, but then we go home and we're having these conversations. And sometimes we're having them with our children or we're modeling them within their earshot. And so when they grow up and become the next generation of leaders in this world, um, you know, they grow up with some skewed mindsets. I just think
Mhm.
it's important that we have the courage enough to correct each other. And I think if you look at our current leadership in this country, to me, that's 4 years of somebody not being corrected.
Mhm.
No one really, really saying, hey, let me talk to you about how you're handling some of this stuff. I mean, what black advisors did he have? How much diversity did he surround himself with?
None.
None
Right.
really. His
Kanye.
cabinet,
Oh.
right, exactly. And we know that he's not the poster child for Black America. So,
Right.
it's like you just have to, you have to think about that. Like even our leaders, who are you talking to? Like if you're talking to um a 65-year-old Baptist minister, that's not the perception of a 24-year-old driver for Amazon. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like,
Of course.
let's
Yeah.
just be real. We
Yeah.
we need to tap into our young people. We need to tap into those mindset because they're radical for change. Even if it's the wrong change, they're radical for it. But we need to teach them how to go about it courageously
Mhm.
and respectfully. It's not like you said, busting out windows. and it's not scaling the walls of the Capitol. It is sit down and let's have a heart to heart with respect. And if we don't agree at the end of this conversation, let's learn how to respectfully disagree. And so I think that's what we miss so much of, is that people can't respectfully disagree.
One of my favorite YouTube series that came out of all of this, and I'm talking, I think it started with BLM and it just kind of grew from there. And I'm forgetting his first
Emmanuel
name.
Acho.
It is Emmanuel. Okay, Emmanuel Acho. His Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man is the title of the series. And it was great because he was going over all those things that I was never taught. Like growing up in a small white farming community in Wisconsin, I just didn't know. I mean, even some of the first conversations that John and I had when we would talk to, people of color we could get on the show. I mean, the first one we talked to Danny, who's a great friend of the show. And we're like, is it okay to say black? Because we weren't sure. I mean, it was like,
can I stop you right there? This is what happened to us. Greg will laugh about this because we had a friend of ours in college. His name was Robert Smith. He was a black man. And one day we were all taking math class, and this is, I don't know, throughout the semester. So we all started becoming good friends and joking with each other. And I grabbed a marker. And Greg knows where I'm going with this. I grabbed the marker because I had to fill out the equation that was on the board. It wasn't working great, and I said, "Oh man, I don't know. Can I have a different marker?" And my teacher goes, "What's wrong with that marker?" I said, "It's black. I don't like black." And Robert goes, "Hey man, what the hell?" Like that, and it freaked me out because I thought, "Oh my god, I was really offended."
He was joking.
He totally was.
He was.
And it wasn't just that I don't like black. The word was, "Can I use the red one?" Well, what's wrong with the black one, John? Well, I don't like it. Black is like dark and sinister, and he's thinking like Darth Vader. And Robert's like, "What the hell?" And Robert played basketball, so his wingspan was like 8 feet across. And then the look on John's face, he turned whiter than he is.
Mortified.
And then he's like, "Oh my god!" And then starts immediately apologizing as we're all just laughing.
Yeah.
And man, Robert taught us a lot because again, we're just young white guys who just didn't grow up around black people, and that's even geographically. Why were there no black people in my town? And it was just a farming community. I'm like, well, no one moves into this town. It's just kind of what it was.
I don't know. Maybe a lot of us got out of the farming business.
I love that we laugh at that. It's perfectly timed and awesome.
We do. You have, and that, I think that's a gifting, like the young man you just explained. You learn how to address the elephant in the room right away. I'm that kind of person. Like that, when I walk into a space like that, I want people to, let's address it right now. Yep, I'm black and I'm here. And it's like you learn how to kind of take that discomfort out of the air. Like, so people can feel comfortable, because they all, like, you're conscious too, and like you said, you walk around not wanting to be offensive to someone.
Correct.
And, so that can cause a lot of discomfort. And so I think a person like him who learns how to just go into an environment and let's point out the elephant in the room, then that's it. Then now the ice is broken, and you can laugh about something that, and not all black people feel that way. Not all black people take that approach. But I'm definitely one that, like I said, about the farming thing, I'll kind of just throw things in there because it's true. You know what I mean? Like, I think I said that to somebody at my job the other week about farming. I'm like, well, we ain't do too good. Well, I don't think we really into farming anymore, but it was just kind of like a joke. Yeah, when we were farming, it was for somebody else, and it wasn't a good look, And
Nope.
then we were farming for ourselves, but as sharecroppers, you don't get much, and so it's just interesting. But yep, in our state, Wisconsin as a whole, is not a very diverse state in the sense that we
What?
have we have the concentrations of diversity, Madison, Milwaukee,
Yeah.
pretty much. Other
Right.
than that, you drive 30, you drive outside of Milwaukee or Madison, you farmland, and it's pretty much white America,
Yep. 30
And
minutes out, you run into me.
so yeah, hey Greg.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
and we
it's
were just
like,
talking about this today. There was a Canadian reporter who came to Milwaukee for a whole different story. I think he was reporting on like Harley Davidson or something like that. So he's visiting Milwaukee the first time. And he ended up writing a whole other article because he's like, this is the most segregated city I have ever seen in my life. He's like, and I've traveled the world because it's like, it's literally by street. Like one
yeah,
side of the street is the black part of town, and on the other side of the street is the Korean part of town. And you go up a couple miles and you got the Mexican part of town. I mean, it's just like, he's like, I've never seen it that way, but everybody's doing it to themselves. Like it's just the way it is, and no one wants to cross over those
no.
lines. He's like,
And
it's the weirdest thing.
But you think about redlining. You think about how
Yeah.
they
Yep.
structured those communities. They structured them that way on purpose. They structured them that way on purpose, and that's the issue. That's part of we African Americans in this country. We started way behind the starting line. We didn't have access to ownership or anything, so we've basically been given or told where we could be. Throughout history,
Yeah.
you're not allowed here. You can't come here. And then the way, we can't obtain loans and those things. We still don't have. You know what I mean? We still haven't been given. What is due to us. And the way those communities were structured is just like that. And then it's interesting when that real estate goes up, they push those communities out. They buy that property, like around the city. Like before on the north side, it was rough. Now they buy all those property. They buy all that property because they built the new center for the Bucks, and they push those people out. You know what I mean? And now that real estate goes up, and those other people move back in. So, it's just interesting because you talk about segregation, and I did live in Milwaukee for almost 2 decades, and I've never, again, you're absolutely right, seen the divisiveness of how segregated those towns are. Like literally by street. You know what I mean? You drive down Brown Deer one way, you're in a black neighborhood, and it's rough. You drive the other way, you're in Mequon. You know what I mean? And it's like, and so all of that, like all of that hinders because you have kids that are growing up in these outskirts suburbs that are not diverse, yet they have access to all this diversity. And that's what saddens me the most. Like, why aren't these schools partnering? Like, why aren't they exposing? Why aren't they having conversations?
Right.
Why aren't they interacting? Not just in WIAH, or why are they not creating spaces for these children who will be our next group of leaders, these generations, to start to interact?
Do you know why I think so?
Why?
Because no one likes to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Even though at the end of being uncomfortable, you are a much better product of what you were before. Nobody wants to go through it. It's even like that with people that want to work out.
Yeah.
They want to change, but man, they don't want to.
Right. They don't want the pain of it.
Yeah, they don't
Tell
want
me
to
about
jog.
it.
They don't want to jog a mile. They don't want to do a push up. They don't want to. I think that's who we are. It's like we're in an ever evolving, constantly changing universe, yet we don't want to change.
Yeah. Change
I
is
was a
uncomfortable.
Yes.
I was very appreciative when I was in college and working on my teaching degree. And I went to Whitewater. That's where I met John. And Whitewater's still very rural, very predominantly white college.
I went there
Um,
too. I
oh,
just didn't
awesome.
finish.
So,
You're at Warhawk?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was there from 93 to 95.
That
I
was
stayed
our
in
stopping
White. I
grounds, wasn't
stayed
it,
in
Greg?
Whitehall. I stayed in Erie Hall.
Oh,
I stayed in Sale. I
yeah.
never stayed in the towers, but I took a few trips over there.
oh,
Yeah.
that's where I lived for the first 2 years. Yeah.
You did, Greg?
Okay.
The
Yeah.
Lived in the two
so
big ones?
yeah, Wells East, Wells West. That was
Oh.
Oh
Wells West.
well, that was too far.
So what in part of their so I was a special ed major, and part of that degree program was I spent, gosh, I want to say it was 5 or 6 weeks. They bussed us into an inner city school in Milwaukee, and
Mhm.
I know the name of the school has changed about 6 or 7 times since then. So but it was totally inner city, and it was just kind of, it was in that middle of um the school itself was in the black neighbor or a black neighborhood, and
Mhm.
across the street, like you walk through the parking lot, and that turned into a Latino neighborhood. So they're like, and then
Mhm.
you walk north 2 blocks, and you were in a Hmong neighborhood, and they're like, you need to take a day or an afternoon or whatever, and you need to walk around to all these neighborhoods, and you need to experience that, and go into the grocery stores, and go have lunch in different places, and try to figure out, just be what it's like, have that multicultural feel.
Mhm.
um but it was very eye-opening, because again, being a kid from a small town in Wisconsin that was predominantly white, and farming and everything else, and then you're thrown into inner city Milwaukee schools, and you're like, ooh, yeah, I don't have the tools to deal with this right now. I mean, it was one of those things that, like, you need to gain those. So that you need to make a conscious choice to get that kind of background, and be able to start to have conversations where the language you're saying, and not the language, that you're not using things like, well, they. Well, what do you mean they?
Mhm.
I mean, that was that kind of experience. But so
Yeah.
I do want to say, like, since, like, when John said you're going to come on the show, I mean, he talked about your just amazing positivity, and so far, we've spent a lot of time just dwelling on, wow, America kind of
Yeah.
sucks at stuff.
Yeah. Right.
So how do you, so through all of the stuff we just talked about, how in the world do you maintain that level of possibility, that being that light in the room? What gets you motivated? How do you keep going?
I think that's interesting. You said that because I was gonna say, you are a light that cannot be hidden, and I truly believe in that. In that saying, I truly believe that my part of my purpose here in this world is to be that light.
Mhm.
I'm a pretty
Have you always
jovial
felt that?
person. Yeah, I've always been an outgoing person, but my mother modeled that for me. Thank God I had a mom that modeled that. People loved her wherever she went. People truly loved her, and she served in Cabrini Green. She served in
Wow.
some of the roughest spots that you could ever go in, and everywhere she went, they would say, "Here come Miss Harris." And if they were gang banging, smoking, selling drugs, whatever it was, when my mother came, they straightened themselves out
Mm.
because they respected her. But my mother was a real person, and she didn't let her situation make exalt her. She didn't feel high and mighty. She was a servant person, and I live to serve people.
Mhm.
And I think in that I find so much joy. It's like I want to prove every stereotype that you could have about someone that looks like me, whether it be my color, whether it be my gender, whether it be my race, whether it be my weight, my hair color. I want to prove you wrong. I want to challenge those very things. And I think really love covers and it casts out all of that darkness. So when you walk in love, I mean, how can you come against that? You know,
Mm-hmm.
so
I love
you
that. I
know,
love that.
my my faith base, I'm a Christian. Uh my belief system is what drives me. Um, my mindset. I ask for the strength each day. I do, and I see the joy. And I'm not trying to brag on myself, but wherever I walk, I feel that. I feel that difference. I feel that
Mm-hmm.
atmosphere change. I feel people ease up a little bit more or sigh a little bit less. Because I strive to be a joy. I want that to be a legacy of mine. That when I leave this place, that people, what will they say about me when I'm gone? And I don't want it to be, oh, she was mean, she was rude. It was,
Yeah.
man. She's always happy. She's always jovial. She's always cracking a joke or things like that. And I try to live my life like that. I really strive to just um be a light. I think we
Mm-hmm.
need that. What's wrong with saying good morning to a person? Like, you'd be surprised now. You speak to someone, they can't
Mm-hmm.
believe you speaking. You have to almost stop and say, hey, I do that. I said good morning to you. How you doing? Look you in the eye. If I know you, I'm gonna ask you about your family. I'm gonna ask you how you're doing because that matters to me. And I think that's how I stay positive. I stay prayed up, seriously, because I could not do it. I don't do it. I think it's God. It's God's purpose for me. Is that I won't even take credit. I won't even try to take credit for what I believe God has purposed me to be. I walk, and I hope that I make him proud each day, and I hope that I'm gonna have something when I leave this place. I hope I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
stand at the gate too long and do too much explaining to try to get in there. I hope that I'm living a life that would be pleasing to people like my grandmothers, people who sharecropped and cleaned for people.
Mm-hmm.
I have a master's degree. I was on my mom's side and my dad's side, one of the first generations to obtain education. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, for me, I have so many things that I think about the people who came before me and all that they had to endure. How dare I not be thankful to live this blessed life, regardless of what's going on in the world? I feel like I'm in this world, but I'm not of it. I don't have to partake in hatred and evilness. I can
Mm-hmm.
still be happy, and I think that's what drives me, is because I truly desire to help people have a better understanding of one another, and I think that's why I have been maybe guided to these places, directed to places like where I'm at now, because I have a purpose. And
Mm-hmm.
what how fitting is it now to have someone having a seat at the table that doesn't look like you, that can
Mm-hmm.
challenge
Yeah.
you, but challenge you in a loving way, not in a way of malice, or I want you to know you're wrong. I want to prove you wrong. But I mean, you can't come against a smile, a genuine smile, and someone genuinely caring about you. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what drives me. That keeps me happy. That and modeling and wanting to be an example for my children, and wanting to be a good example to my for my husband, someone he can be proud of. Oh, that's your wife now. Oh, you married her. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
I don't want it to be. I don't want it to be that. I want it to be, when people interact with me, they know I'm a genuine, real person. I cry. I've had struggles. I've overcome things. And you can persevere. That's my message. You can
Mm-hmm.
persevere. You can overcome anything. I told you all, I was kicked out of school. You know, I have that testimony. I didn't go to school and just graduate. You know, I had to go through some things to get to where I'm at, but I'm here and I'm thankful for it. And I hope that and if I'm able to encourage one person to look at life through a better colored lens, then I think I've done my job. So that's it. I try to be an example. I really
Mhm.
do. I really, really, really do. You know,
I didn't. Awesome. I I don't know how to follow up after that. I mean, because
I
that's why I
agree.
got you on the show. I think that whole little thing you said there. Yeah. Um, I I think we're good there, right? Like I think
Yeah,
that
I don't know. I don't know where we go up from there.
no, we don't. Usually I would throw these little questions at you to end the show, but you know what? I want to end it there because I feel like the way what you just said and how you get up every day and how you're I think you said you want to be a light. You know, that's God, we all need that right now, you know. And I'm thankful you got on the show. I'm thankful you got comfortable enough to talk to us about how you feel about certain events going on right now and how that's not going to drag you down or slow you down and that you are going to shine bright. That's awesome. So
that's
I
right.
think
We
we'll end it
definitely
there.
need it.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely. I think we'll end it there. Nikki, thank you so much for jumping on the show. Greg,
Absolutely. You guys, I appreciate you having me. And anytime,
okay, cool,
Yeah,
cool.
anytime.
Look,
I was gonna
Nikki, I'll be
say, I
honest.
think as we and John and I started this whole podcast so that we could self-develop and we can talk to different people that are not like us,
Yeah,
and we can learn from that experience. And I think you've probably now been put on that short list of
yes.
people when things come up, um, that you're a person we can go to and be like, hey, can you teach us about this because we don't know what to do right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Please call me anytime, man.
We totally
Anytime.
will. We totally will.
Anytime. Even if it has to be a courageous conversation. You know,
All
I'm
right.
always
Oh,
Sounds
that's
good.
probably
uh,
it's gonna be. I'm gonna be
That's
uh,
honest. It's
probably what
probably
it's
what
going
it's
to
gonna be.
be.
it don't always have to be rainbows and lollipops,
I
but we'll
agree.
get there, right?
Awesome.
Well,
Awesome.
you
Awesome.
gentlemen have a good evening, and I definitely appreciate you.
No problem. Greg, anything you want to say to the rest of the people out there?
I'm not gonna go for my usual line tonight. I think I'm just gonna go for that. Be the light.
Yeah,
Be
I
that
agree.
light.
Be the light. So for Nikki, the Greg, and Johnny, we're out of here, guys. Podcast out.
See you
Nikki,
guys.
that was awesome. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.